What is going on, everyone? Hello, and welcome back into another edition of the Brooklyn Boys Show. I am your host, Connor Long, and today we are joined by a very, very special guest right here on 4th of July. So happy 4th of July to everyone out there. It is the great Yossi Gozlan, NBA cap expert. Yossi, appreciate you sparing some time, and how you doing?
I'm doing well, Connor. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. And I really appreciate you fitting us into your schedule. Know how busy it is for you out there. Obviously, free agency. This is your time of year, Yossi, where all the cap stuff is going on between free agency, between all the trades. But nevertheless, super happy you are able to be here. Make sure you all smash the like button, hit subscribe to all your questions, comments, thoughts in the chat. And I think where we have to start is the hottest topic in Netsland, that being Cam Thomas. What has been assumed, what the Nets have done with Cam Thomas is kind of said, all right, you're a restricted free agent. Go out, test your market, see what's out there, and then you'll ultimately come back to us because there's not much of a market, as we know, for Cam Thomas out there because the Nets are the team that has the most cap space in the league. They're commanding the league with all these major cap decisions. My question to you is, what does Cam Thomas's extension look like? Is it a cheaper one-year deal in the $13 to $15 million range? The Nets lock him up for multiple years. From what you're hearing, what does Cam Thomas's extension look like?
I don't know. I thought he might get something kind of like what Cam Johnson got last year, like in that 4 for 90 range ahead of free agency. I'm starting to feel like he might be getting less than that. Seems like restricted free agency this year is going to be really slow for everybody. I wouldn't be surprised if some of these situations drag into the end of the month or even like closer to training camp. I don't know how much Cam Thomas is going to get, but it doesn't seem like there's too much interest league wide for a team to make an aggressive offer sheet or to even so and then now the other thing with the Nets is they, after the draft, I'm not even sure it makes so much sense for Cam Thomas to come back because they have so many guards now. I think they want to play these guys, and if Cam Thomas is there, he needs the ball a lot. Maybe they can want to consider sign and trade opportunities, and that way they can have a little more cap space next year because they're probably going to do this again. So now I'm more interested in knowing if there's any other Cam Thomas teams out there, because I think at this point it might make a little more sense if for both sides for a sign and trade. But I'm guessing at this point his actual contract probably comes up lower than what I projected earlier.
Yeah, I projected at first like 3 years, $80 million, similar to what Anthony Simons got just last offseason. But now we're starting to see the market dwindle. I've heard contract offers thrown out there as cheap as like 1 year, $13 million, 1 year, $15 million. Way less years and a lot cheaper than I originally anticipated. Look, I think Cam Thomas needs to be back on this team. I understand that he needs the ball in his hands, but this guy was the team's leading scorer last year. He averaged over 20 points per game. This is the guy who can run your offense. I understand you have a lot of guys you want to develop, but my whole thought process, Yossi, is you have all these young guards. You need someone to help mentor them. And Cam Thomas isn't like the aging veteran. He isn't 30 years old, but he's been in the league for a couple of years now. He knows what it's like to play NBA basketball. I think these young scorers need someone to mentor them. Also, when it comes to these guards, not all of them are scorers. I think Cam Thomas is the only one who could really shoot the ball from anywhere. Yegor Demon, the 8th overall pick, I think he shot 28% from three last year. He's more of a passer. He can get you rebounds. He's 6'8". I think the Nets need Cam Thomas back because he's the only true elite scoring threat who could shoot the ball from anywhere on the court. Unless the Nets are going the mentality again for the second year in a row, just rip everything apart and let's win 5 games and try to get the number 1 overall pick. But we all know that doesn't work because there'll be, some crazy trade. Maybe the Mavericks get the number 1 pick again, and it's rigged again. So who knows what happens. I expect the Nets, though, to re-sign Cam Thomas just because I think he's the leading scorer. He wants to be back in Brooklyn. I think he's the only true facilitator they have on this team. Staying with the topic of kind of utilizing the remaining cap space, the Nets are still under the salary floor ahead of the season. So the Nets still have a lot of money to spend until they hit that salary floor. How do you think the Nets utilize the remaining cap space?
So I think they're going to try to get another first-round pick with their cap space. They have like a minimum of $17 million to spend right now. Yep. And they've so far the 2 trades they've done have gotten them first-round picks. So I feel like they're going to try to stick to that price. Shoot, no, I don't have to check how much. I know I wrote it down somewhere. I don't remember how much lower they are below the salary floor. I
I
think
think
they're
it's $12 million right now, or 17, 12
okay.
or 17.
So if they wanted to, they don't even need to do another big trade like that. They could just re-sign Cam Thomas, and that would put him over there. The only thing is then they'd be burning their cap space. So I had anticipated they're still going to try to do something else, maybe bring in another Terrence Mann salaried level player.
Mhm.
This morning we just saw the Magic re-sign Mo Wagner. Now they're going to be into the tax unless they cut some salary. Maybe they could be interested in trying to salary dump like Jonathan Isaac or Jett Howard, something like that. Memphis still needs to save money. They are trying to move off Cole Anthony. So maybe there's something there with the Nets, but if not, then maybe the Grizzlies just stretch him so they could get the cap space they need for Jaren Jackson's extension. Who else needs to save money? Those are just two examples. So, Toronto, I think needs to save some money. They're like in a tax right now. There's just a couple teams I could see the Nets doing deals with to use their remainder cap space, try to get another draft pick or something like that.
Now, is there any big names that you're looking on the trade market that the Nets could potentially look at? We heard today that Jonathan Kuminga could be getting shopped, and there were a bunch of teams that are involved in those talks, the Nets being one of them. Benedict Mathurin is another young name in Indiana who perhaps might be on the move. Do you see the Nets trying to, compile this cap space to go ahead and make a blockbuster move? They have all these draft picks. Could you see them trading for a young star, and whether it's Jonathan Kuminga or Benedict Mathurin? You see that happening, Yossi?
I could see if the Nets wanted to, they could probably get one of the top restricted free agents in a sign and trade. Like that wouldn't be hard. I just don't think they were interested in that right now, given where they are, because guys like Giddy Kuminga can help teams right now. And the Nets are still probably trying to bottom out next year. And I don't think they want the financial obligation long term. The other now as far as a guy like a Mathurin, a guy who is under contract on a rookie deal that is maybe their contract's coming up, I think that makes some more sense. I don't know if Mathurin makes. I don't know how now his situation, like with the Halliburton injury, Turner leaving, the Pacers now have some money to bring him back. So I don't know about him in particular, but yeah, someone like him on a rookie deal, I think that makes sense for the Nets to bring in some more young players that might be undervalued somewhere else and maybe could thrive with them.
Now, speaking of, big salary cap holds, the Nets did trade for Michael Porter Jr. alongside a 2032 unprotected first-round pick, sending Cam Johnson to Denver. Michael Porter Jr. had signed a huge contract just a few years ago, and he has pretty big cap hits the next 2 years. I think it's $38 million this year and $40 million next year, or vice versa. But nevertheless, significant cap hits. And the Nets have made it clear they want to keep MPJ. They want him to be on this team. They're not going to flip him right away because of that big salary cap hit. My question to you is it smart that the Nets are doing that, or do you think they should continue to just go with the motto of full youth movement, get every single person out of here, and we're just going to run with all five of our rookies on the floor? Does it make sense that the Nets are retaining MPJ?
I don't think they have much of a choice in that decision. I think his contract is just so big. There's a reason the Nuggets traded him, who, when healthy, I don't think is really like Cam Johnson's like that much better than him. I feel like they're pretty neutral when they're both like at full health and full speed. So if the Nuggets did this trade because it was so financially motivated, they saved a lot of money. Now Jonas Valanciunas, he might give up all the rest of his contract so he could go to Greece.
I did
So
see
now
that.
so now if that happens, the Nuggets would be able to use their full mid-level. So this trade has a lot of good short-term benefits to help extend the Nuggets window now. They gave up their a distant first-round pick that should be pretty valuable because there's no appetite for Porter Jr. on this contract. So I like Porter Jr. more than most. When he's healthy, I think, and he's like going, I think he's really valuable. However, he also was like, he's probably unlikely to be in a better situation than he was in Denver playing with Jokic. So he might never reach those highs again. But for the Nets, so they're gonna have to. I think they have him for now while he's making all this money, and what they can potentially do is maybe there's an extension they could do that they get him on a lower number after this season because he has one more year left. But so the one after that, maybe they get him on a lower number, and if he's playing a lot better, then those two factors in combination with each other could increase his trade value, make him more desired around the league. So I think he's going to be there to stay for now, at least for, through the trade deadline, probably even further than that. And after that, if he plays a lot better, his contract gets closer to the end, maybe there will be a team interested enough to give the Nets like another first round pick or something like that. I'm sure that's what they'd like in the end.
We've discussed a lot of the Nets offseason moves here. Now I'm going to throw you the heavy hitter, Yossi. How would you grade Shawn Marx and what he's done this offseason so far for the Brooklyn Nets?
As far as utilization of cap space, I think like an A- to an A, where I had lower expectations on what they could accomplish, even though they are the only cap space team. A lot of people felt that they were going to just get whatever they want. And last year, a lot of teams there were more teams that had cap space and they couldn't really get any, there was no first round pick in value traded to save money. And they managed to get one by taking on Terrence Mann, and they got another one by taking on Michael Porter Jr. They also gave up positive value in Cam Johnson, but I think that's a very valuable first round pick, one that's like that far out in the future. So I think that's good so far. As far as the draft, I can't really say. I'm not really a draft. I don't study the draft, but I've seen a lot of people pan them for their draft and keeping all 5 first round picks. So I guess time will tell on that. And we'll just see how the rest of it goes. I like the contracts they gave to Sharp and Williams. That's kind of what I expected for them to get re-signed to something in that range, so they could still maximize their cap space. And but they still have like another move or two left to make. So let's see what else they end up having up their sleeve.
Absolutely. You mentioned Day'Ron Sharpe there. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Nick Claxton, the other center on this team's roster, who is on a pretty large contract, 1 year into a 4-year, $100 million deal. The Nets have pretty much declared that they're not going to trade him ahead of the season. Is Nick Claxton a piece that you could view as movable, maybe potentially at the trade deadline this season?
Yeah. Right now, it's hard to see if there's any teams that like need a new starting center right now. As I look around the league, like the only team that has like a glaring hole is the Hornets, but I feel like between Plumlee, Diabate, and Kalkbrenner, maybe they're fine. And then there's like a team like Chicago. Okay, well, what are they going to trade Vucevic? Would he become available? Like if they were to send them to the Warriors, for example, maybe the Bulls could use a guy like Claxton. So my feeling is he doesn't get traded right now, and there aren't any teams willing to give up the type of value that would make the Nets interested, which is like a good premium first round pick. So, I think we'll have to wait till the deadline, most likely, to see if something else changes for Claxton.
Is Terrence Mann a guy who you could potentially see on the move? Do you think he plays for the Nets this season? Because Terrence Mann, clearly the whole motto behind that was take on his salary. That was all the Nets didn't give up anything in that trade. They acquired a first-round pick, which amounted to Drake Powell, just to pretty much absorb that significant contract. But if you look at the Nets small forwards, it's a pretty crowded room right now between Jalen Wilson, Drake Powell, who you selected with that pick, Terrence Mann, Zaire Williams, Michael Porter Jr. Do you think there are any opportunities to deal Terrence Mann, or is he a net?
I would have to think that he's going to be a net for now. That contract that the Clippers extended him to last year was it was aggressive. Didn't understand why they had to give him this they went like to like the max he could get while remaining trade eligible for the year. And they were fortunate that the Hawks at the time valued him enough where they gave up multiple second rounders. But then now the Hawks traded a first round pick, partly to get Porzingis, but Also, to get off Man, the Celtics could have taken Man and the first round pick, but they wanted to save money. So that all went to the Nets. So I don't know. It's hard to tell where his value is right now. I don't if they are able to trade him as a player, I don't think they're really getting any positive value back. I'd have to guess you're just mainly getting off the contract. As far as playing time, yeah, like the same thing what I'm saying with Cam Thomas. It's so crowded at guard, and you're right. It's equally crowded at wing right now. Um, I do think, yeah, the Nets definitely have some challenges to figure out as far as their rotation goes. They do have like Keon Johnson, Jalen Wilson,
That's
Tyrese
another one.
Barton, Drew Timmy, all on non-guaranteed contracts. They're gonna have to trim down the roster at some point. So we'll see what they end up doing. But it looks like just with as I'm looking at the roster, there's gonna be some important players, like whether it's some of their recent draft picks or some of their big name veterans. Some people are not going to get playing time, and this is a roster where like everyone arguably has a case to needing a good amount of playing time. So that's gonna be a challenge.
Yeah, you mentioned the non-guaranteed contracts. That's what I wanted to hit on next with you, because there's no guaranteed money in that deal, if I stand corrected, because it was a team option that the Nets exercised. That being said, what is do they have a cap hit this year? How does that count against the cap?
So all those guys that are non-guaranteed, they like their base, just nothing counts right now. They
They
could just
don't have
cut
a cap
them.
hit.
They have their cap hits, but if they cut them, they don't count as anything. They're none of
Okay.
them are guaranteed at all. So I would anticipate maybe one or two of those guys do get waived, especially if they do bring in, because they're at 16 players right now. They're gonna probably bring back Cam Thomas, so you're already gonna have to cut two of them at a minimum, unless you
And then you
do
have
some other trades. So, so I would guess they keep Wilson and Keon Johnson. If they prioritize those two, we'll see about the others.
Yeah, Drew Timmy, the center. I mean, between Danny Wolf, who you just drafted, Day'Ron Sharp, Nick Claxton, MPJ, who could play the four. You have Noah Clowney. I just don't know if there's room for Drew Timmy on the roster. Tyrese Martin, inconsistent from time to time last year. The Nets seem to really, really like Jalen Wilson. Don't understand why Jalen Wilson I view as a very unathletic player who's at best a 3-and-D guy for your team. And then Keon Johnson is just a scrappy, okay defender, I guess, in Jordy Fernandez's eyes. But yeah, I'd have to side with you on those two guys. I think they ultimately retain. The Nets are in a really, really interesting spot though, Yossi, because they have good players. Like there are some solid role players on this team between Cam Thomas, who I think could be a star on a team in just a few years. I think another guy who's established himself as a very, very good NBA player is Michael Porter Jr. You have Nick Claxton, who's coming off a down year, but he was a stout defensive threat just a few seasons ago. I mean, what do you think this Nets team does this year? Could you see them making a push for a play-in spot? Where do you think they ultimately finish come the end of the season?
So first, to the last thing we were talking about, I forgot to mention Tyrese Martin and Drew Timmy could still be brought back on two-way deals. So if they don't have anyone else lined up for those, they could cut them, but bring him back on those. So that's just something worth noting, that they could still be around. As far as like how the Nets do, I think the Nets are gonna probably be kind of similar to where they were last year. Probably a little worse though, because last year they did have Schroeder to start the year, and having a point guard that quality helped a lot. Then they got Russell, but I know he barely played that much. So once they stripped point guard, that's when they were able to torpedo down in the standings. Now this year they have several guards are going to try out. Demin, Traore. I think that's all they've got for now.
Sarab, maybe. He's not going to play much of a role.
He's okay. So I have to. I would guess that these guys are not. I would guess they're not going to be at a level high enough to help carry this Nets offense to above the bottom tier. So they finished, what, 6th worst last year? I would have to think they're going to be in that bottom 4 range, maybe a little better than like the Washington, Utah group. But still, I would have to predict they'd be in that range.
Interesting. I think if Cam Thomas comes back, because keep in mind the Nets finished that way with Cam Thomas only playing 22 games, 24 games or something like that last season. Cam Thomas was on the court. He averaged over 20 points a night. He was knocked down from 3-point range. I think you can make an argument that like MPJ will kind of fit the role maybe of Schroeder. I know MPJ is not a point guard, but he's a 3-4 who can get you 15, 20 points a night. I think he averaged 16 points per game last year and 7 rebounds. He's a solid defender. Shot the 3 ball at a 40% clip last year. I think there's a chance this team could sneak into the play-in as the 10 seed. I know it sounds a little crazy at first, but if they get off to a hot start and they're able to hold that momentum through the rest of the year, if you're able to be 3-4 games under come the All-Star break, you're right in the play-in conversation. I don't think this team is going to tank. I don't think that's what Jordi Fernandez stands for. I don't think Jordi Fernandez wants, to tank. Jordi Fernandez is a coach who wants to instill a winning culture. I don't see this team intentionally trying to lose games. I mean, where would you rank their talent on the roster among other teams in the league? Do you think it's a bottom 10 roster?
Let's go through the teams in the East then. You think they'll be better than the Wizards?
Yes, I think they'll be better than the Wizards.
Okay. Better than the Hornets?
You can make a case. I think they're pretty much neck and neck with the Hornets. I'm an optimistic Nets fan. See, I know it's hard to say because the Nets moved to Brooklyn and the Nets have never won a championship. I'm a Jets fan too. See, that's how I started getting into podcasting. I run a Jets podcast, so I'm a Jets and a Nets fan. Jets haven't made the playoffs in my existence. The Nets have never won a championship since their NBA existence in 1976. So, but I still tend to be optimistic somehow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm looking at, if you look at the teams, you got like, Cleveland, New York, Detroit, Orlando, Atlanta. Those teams are going to be pretty good. I would have to think Boston, Milwaukee are still going to be like fine. Mm-hmm. So then you're talking about like, you got to beat out teams like the Bulls, the Heat, the Raptors, and Sixers. Philly, I don't know what to expect. Very quiet offseason from them.
Exactly. What I would say is I think they can make the play-in. I don't think it's out of the question. I don't think it's a crazy, unheard of thing to say the Nets could be a 9 or a 10 seed. That's my whole take. I think they're going to finish in like the 12 to 13 range. I think that's ultimately where they settle out.
Yeah. I think it all just comes down to point guard play because I don't know what to expect from – we don't know who their lead guard's going to be. Like the expectation is Demon, but we don't know how he's going to be, if there's going to – if Traore or Saraf could step up and really push this Nets offense to a level they need to. So – that's the thing where that's why we just don't know. Maybe one of them surprised, but unless one of them do, they're like, that's the quickest way to bottom out when you just don't have like a good lead guard to help organize the offense. Yeah.
I think that could be Cam Thomas though. Like if Cam Thomas plays 65 games, I think that's who he is. A guy who could shoot the 3 ball, who could be a leader for you on the court. And I think MPJ, I don't think what enough people are talking about is MPJ played under Jordi Fernandez at a point. So Jordi Fernandez knows MPJ, knows what type of player. I think Jordi Fernandez is going to view MPJ as kind of an extension of his voice on the court, a defensive threat who can get you 15 points a game. I think that's the way MPJ is going to kind of contribute and fit in.
I mean, the only thing about Cam Thomas, he's only every year it's like hit or miss how many games he's going to play. So it's a lot to ask for also to expect him to suit up enough.
Absolutely. So I mean, availability is the best ability. By far. You need to be available to make a big impact in the NBA 1000%. Appreciate you all tuning in. Connor Long, Yossi Gozlan, right here with you on a 4th of July edition of the Brooklyn Boys Show. Smash the like button, hit subscribe. Follow Yossi and his incredible work at Yossi Gozlan on X. He does some great salary cap work, so shoot him a follow. About 5 minutes left here with Yossi. Over 1,000 you guys are watching, so appreciate you all. Throw all your questions, comments, thoughts in the chat. That's what we'll be moving over to for the final 5 minutes here on 4th of July. Wolf Warner says, why do we pass on Malwatch? No one has talked about this. Yossi, I think it was just a combination of the fact that the Nets really, really like Diego Demon and the way he could fit in with this team, and the fact that they have Nick Claxton under contract. They clearly like Daron Sharp enough to give him a second contract. I just don't think they wanted to overload at the center position, and they really, really fell in love with a guy like Diego Demon to the point where they were confident taking him with the 8th overall pick.
I'm not a draft guy, but I'd love to know. I'd love to see what their draft board was, because what happened in the beginning of the first round was all the top point guards got taken pretty quickly, where we saw like I think there was an expectation the Pelicans would take Malawak, and then they took Fears instead. Would the Nets have taken him or one of the other guards right ahead if they fell to them? Because that's what I want to know. Was Demon that high on their board, or did they really prioritize getting one of the top guards? And maybe they would have gotten a different one.
I think they really liked, from what I understand, I think they really liked Fears. I think they really, really liked Demon, clearly, and they were confident enough to take him. And the third guy I think they really, really liked was Ace Bailey. And Demon was the only guy available there. I still think it's a bit of a reach. I think if Demon's able to develop as a shooter, I think he's going to be a very, very, very good point guard. But if he's not, you're just looking at a role player. Like you can hit with, if he's able to shoot the three, if he's 6'8" and he's able to shoot the three ball at a 36-37% clip over the next few years, you're looking at a really, really solid NBA point guard. If he's shooting under 30%, it's a role player, because what's a point guard who can't shoot from three in today's NBA?
Yeah, no, that's true. Not a starter, really.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay, so Anthony says Nets going to be a running/fast break team. I think that's what you hope they are. They were very, very slow last year from a tempo standpoint. You hope that they're able to pick up the pace a little bit with all these young pieces, push the ball down the court. I think that's exactly what this Nets team identity is going to be this season.
Wasn't that kind of what they did last year?
I think they ranked 27th in pace last year.
Never mind.
They were
what about the beginning of the year before they traded Schroeder? Do you know?
I don't know what the number was in the beginning of the year. I'm sure you can find. I can find it somewhere, like the first half of the game, first half of the season. But I mean, when they had Schroeder, they were pushing the ball down the court quickly, because it would be shot, Schroeder, inbound, outlet right away, taking up the court, and the Nets were pretty fast to start the year. But things began to bottom out when D'Angelo Russell came in, when Zaire Williams started to regress a little bit. So things did slow down a little bit towards the end of the year for Brooklyn. Lou says Cam is too injury prone to be a lead guard, but we should trade Claxton to make injury prone Sharp the starter. I mean, the way I could kind of flip this to you, Yossi, is do you think Nick Claxton's able to return to the form that he played as a defensive player of the year candidate 2 seasons ago, or do you think the Nets are just going to try to trade him at the deadline and get something in return? How do you think Nick Claxton projects this season?
I think it's going to be kind of hard. I think he could get back to his form, but I don't know if it's with this team where he was really good when the Nets had a really good ecosystem with Kyrie, KD.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like obviously he was injured. He had an injury hampering him, but I don't know if he'll ever reach those highs with the Nets again. So I'm not. So that's why the struggle in trading him is that I don't think his value is high enough where the Nets are going to get something in the short term that makes it worth it for them to trade him right now. So I could see him sticking around, and if there's still injuries persisting, I'm sure we're going to see guys like Claxton, Porter Jr., Cam Thomas, miss enough games from time to time to let the other kids play.
Yeah, absolutely. Yossi, really appreciate you sparing some time for us right here on 4th of July. Thank you so much for joining us here on the show. Again, I know I plugged it earlier, but let everyone know where they can find you and share all your final thoughts here before we wrap things up.
Oh, thanks for having me on, Connor. This was a lot of fun. You do great work. You can follow me, everybody, on Twitter, Blue Sky. My name, Yossi Gozlan. I've been having salary cap analysis to all the transactions as they happen. Free agency is almost over, but we still have some more. There's still a couple more things to come. And my work, the Third Apron podcast, wherever you get podcasts, and my newsletter as well, also named Third Apron for deeper salary cap analysis. I'll probably put something on the Nets at some point about their offseason. Yeah, and then capsheets.com where you can see all my salary cap information.
Shoot Yossi a follow. He does great work. Everyone smash the like button, hit subscribe right here on the Brooklyn Boys Show. Everyone have a very great day. Enjoy your 4th of July. And as always, go Nets.